Let's now try to trace the code. And again, I'm going to do this simultaneously on both the debugger and also on the paper. So just to make sure you can really do on both platforms to visualize and also to trace. Okay, I'm going to put a breakpoint in the test case. So let me switch to the tab for test member. And also I'm going to put a breakpoint in the beginning. Let's say this line here, right? Right before we try to create the first member object over here, this line. Okay, and then I'm going to launch the debugger, and you can simply move your cursor over the box button here, and you will show debug test member. So that's the right class to debug. Click on that, and we're going to switch to the debug perspective as always. And now we're now pausing right before executing this line over here, right? Okay. So what I would do is I'm actually going to simply just, so we don't really need to step into the constructor call, so which we have done already previously. So we don't need to repeat this part, which is simple. I'll simply just say step over, and step over. So now we actually got 3 member objects over here, 1, 2, and 3. And notice that the addresses over here are simply just different. And I also need to copy them over when I visualize the objects. I'll do that in just a moment. Okay, let's now switch to iPad over here. Okay, and then I also put the relevant classes in to side by side. So this is the member class, and I selectively only put attributes here. I didn't put a balance attribute over here, but that's okay. You know, that's not relevant for this discussion here. But in your code, it should still be there. So in the template, which I'm gonna visualize, I don't really include a balance attribute here. So whenever you try to visualize the object by drawing boxes, you can be selective about which attributes you want to include. Okay, as long as you know what you're doing. So we got attribute here, and most importantly will be the trainer, which I'll explain. Okay, you can see trainer over here, and you can think about this field over here at the physical level is going to store some address for some trainer objects for sure. However, diagrammatically, we're going to draw a pointer to somewhere in the memory, right? So that's what we will do. And then we got a constructor, we got the get trainer accessor, and also we got the 2 mutators over here, register and also refer. All right, and also this is a JUnit test that we just did. All right, so let's now first of all visualize about the object creation for the 3 members. Okay, and this will be the first line, Alan, and also this will be the second line, Mark. I try to use different color just to denote we actually got 3 different objects, even though they share the same structure. And also the third object will be Tom over here. Okay, so what I would do is I'm going to copy the member template over here. And then I'm going to paste that 3 times because we got 3 member objects over there, right? So this will be the first one. Okay, I think that's the maximum. That's the maximum size I can get. Okay, just this one here. So this will be the first objects, and also we got the second one, and also we got the third one over here. And I might just need to make them maybe a little bit smaller. Okay, okay, so we can. Eventually, we need 3 member objects and also 2 trainer objects. So we just need to use the space more carefully. Okay, I think that's about right. Okay, I think still readable by you for sure. Okay, so that will be the third object, and that's the second object, right? So I think I really want to show you the process of creating the object, so you would know how to draw when you want to trace the OO program. Okay, okay, let's do the first one. So for Alan, we're actually going to create Alan variable, which is going to store the address of this particular object, and the name will just be Alan, right? So the name over here will just be Alan. And also we got the second one will be Mark, and you can see the name will just be Mark. So let me just put Mark over here, and Mark is pointing to this object here, right? And then the name will just be Mark. And finally, we also got Tom over here. And so that means Tom is actually going to store the address of this object, so pointing to it. And the name will just be Tom. Okay, and then to make it even more explicit, I can just color this object. Okay, so that'll be Alan. So this will be Mark. And this will be Tom. All right. So these are the 3 member objects that we have just created. Let's just check some assertion very quickly. Okay, so now the first assertion I can check will be assert true Alan.getTrainer equals null. Let's take a look at how to execute this assertion call, this method call here. You can see here, when we say Alan.getTrainer over here, we're calling this accessor method we did before about tracing the get BMI report, similar. So you can see the context object really is Alan over here. So that means Alan dot. So what we're doing is Alan dot, and then we're calling the method on this particular objects, right? And the method we are calling is get trainer over here. Okay, so we are basically calling get trainer over here, and then when we're calling this, what's the context objects? It's basically Alan, as I just explained, Alan. So that means this is going to be just Alan. So we are basically saying Alan.trainer. So Alan.trainer corresponding to the diagram will be Alan, the variable storing the address, dot trainer. And trainer at this point simply just null. You can think about for all the reference type, the default value will just be null. Okay, you can think about for now is simply just going to be null, and then you can think about for Mark also, and also for Tom. Initially simply just null. Okay, so that is why we're going to just return Alan.trainer, which is going to be null. So this value here is going to be null. Now equals to null will be simply just true. All right, that's how we trace this particular line. Right, the other two lines will be very similar. I don't need to bother you too much, but what's really important for you to notice, we are also calling the same method get trainer. Right, we're also calling the same method here, get trainer. However, the context object right now is actually Mark. So that means this will be replaced by Mark. So we are basically saying Mark.trainer. So Mark.trainer is going to be Mark dot and also trainer. Even though it's returning null, but you should really notice that it's the null that belongs to this particular object rather than this object, right? You should really see that. All right, so now Mark.getTrainer is going to give us null, so assert null will just be passing for short. Finally, if we try to say assert false over here, and then Tom.getTrainer just following the same logic. GetTrainer, we are calling the same method over here, so we're just calling this method again, getTrainer, and then it's going to be Tom. And Tom.trainer is also going to be null. So now null not equal to null will just be false. And assert false is expecting this particular expression to be false. So we are passing that assertion. All right. So all these three should be straightforward for you. I think it's just about reviewing how you can call accessor method with different context object, right? So a quick recap. You can see for this part here, we're calling getTrainer first time, second time, and third time. However, it's going to get us to access different objects simply because the context object, Alan, Mark, and Tom, they're simply different. That's why. Okay? Even though they're returning the same value, simply because null, null, and null in the very beginning. But it will change later. Okay? And then let's now go to the next line. The next line will be to create the trainer objects. Okay, let me just highlight it. Okay, let me now go to, let's say, orange. Let's say we try to create one trainer called Jared, and then we're gonna create another trainer called John. So we got Jared and we got John, right? Sorry. Let's see how we can do this. Okay, we don't need this member template anymore. We have already created the three objects. I can delete it. So now we just need to create two trainer. Okay, we got one already over here, and we just need another one, right? Two trainers in total. Okay, let's put them here. So one of them, let's see the orange one. So when we execute this line, we're going to create using the trainer constructor. You can refer to its definition. It's very easy. It's very similar to this particular one. Similar, but we are not calling that one. I'm just saying similar definition. Okay. So we're creating this trainer object, and then Jared is going to store the address to it. So here, let's say Jared is pointing to this particular trainer objects, and the name will be capital J, right? Jared. And then we got another one. This one will be, let me use purple. So this will be John, and also is going to set the name to be John, right? So John over here, pointing to this object over here, and the name is going to be John. All right, and then to make it even more explicit, I'm going to change the color. So this one should be orange, and this one should be purple. All right, you can see in total we actually got 5 objects so far, right, in the universe that we're considering. You can see we got 1, 2, 3 objects of type member. They share just the same structure over here. And also we got another category of objects. We got 2 of them. We got 2 instances of the trainer class, and then they share the same structure. You can see the structure for trainer is definitely different from the structure for member, right? Just a quick observation. All right, and now let's now try to see how we can trace for mutator method. Well, that'll be interesting to see. Okay, so what I'll do is let me see this. Let's now execute this line over here. Let me just highlight it properly. So now we are modifying the Allen objects. So when we say Allen register trainer Jared, what's going to happen here, right? So let's see, we are calling this method called register trainer. That's what we're doing, right? So if you go to the method here, register trainer, so that's the method we are calling. And the context object is really Allen. So that means that this over here, in this case, will be just Allen. And then what about the input parameter? So now we call this input here the arguments. Okay, you can see this will be Jared over here. So you can see this trainer over here will just be Jared in this case. So what we'll end up having is trainer over here will also be replaced by Jared over here. So what we really need to execute would be Allen dot trainer. So let's try this. Allen dot trainer is going to store the address that's actually stored in Jared. And Jared is really storing the address of this particular object. So what will be the consequence? The consequence is this particular field is going to store the same address that is stored in Jared variable. That's what's going to happen. Diagrammatically, what we should do is we're going to say the trainer field is now going to point to this particular object over here. So guys, hopefully you're following my reasoning over here. All right. Let me write it down very quickly for you. So you can think about for this part over here, what we will end up having is Allen.trainer. Right? Notice that there's a dot over here. Is assigned to Jared. And again, we're going to store the address that is stored in Jared into Allen.trainer. Right? Okay, so I already explained that. So for this one here, you will simply just be Allen.trainer rather than storing now, rather than this, it's now going to point to wherever Jared is actually pointing to, right? That's what's going to happen. Let me try to draw that, right? So now it's now going to point to this trainer object over here. All right? So hopefully you can see. All right, guys, hopefully you're following, right? We do have aliasing over here. Let me show you one line over here. You can definitely try. So after this line over here, if I say Allen.getTrainer, yeah, actually that's something you will see in a moment. Okay, I don't need to show it now. Okay, that will be for this line here. And then the next line. Let's say we're trying to say mark the register trainer John. Okay, what's going to happen here? Very similar. You can see we are calling the same register trainer method, right? So this method, we're calling this the second time. Okay, let me just draw better. So we're calling this method for the second time. And now the context object is mark. So that means this over here will be mark instead. So that means we're really modifying mark dot trainer. So mark dot trainer is over here. We are modifying this field to what? So it depends on what the input argument is. So this is the input arguments. So now this will be John. So that means the trainer over here, so in this case, is going to be John. All right, and then, so that means the trainer on the right-hand side is going to be John. So what we end up having is, okay, let me just erase this. What we end up having is mark dot trainer is reassigned to simply John. That's what we're doing. Okay, so we're going to have mark dot trainer is assigned to John. You can see the assignment pattern here is really the same. However, it's just that the context object over here is different, Alan versus Mark, and also the input is also different, Jared versus John. It's simply because as a consequence of these two method calls, right? That's really important for you to see. Right, for now, we're going to see mark.trainer is assigned to John. So that means whatever, okay, you can see John stores the address of this particular objects. We're going to store the same address into mark.trainer, which is this particular file over here. Consequently, so that means this trainer over here is now going to point to the same object that's pointed to by John, right? That's what's going to happen. Okay, let's now update the file over here. So for trainer, so for mark.trainer, rather than pointing to null, right? It's now going to point to wherever John is pointing to, just this object over here. All right, so that one is there is very similar to before. Let's now check some assertions quickly, okay? And then what we can do is we can do this. So let's say assert true over here. Alan.getTrainer not equal to null, and Alan.getTrainer is equals Jared, right? Let's see how this can be done. So Alan.getTrainer, right now you can see getTrainer, the context object is simply just Alan, right? You can also trace the getTrainer again, so I'm not going to repeat it. Alan.getTrainer is going to return the trainer for Alan. So this is really pointing to this particular object, and this particular object does exist. Of course, it's not equal to null, so this one pass. And also, this particular object, the address is simply equal to Jared, for sure, because Jared is also pointing to the same objects, right? So now, let me highlight the aliasing for you over here. So the aliasing we are having over here is like this. You can see. So here, this is Alan.trainer is pointing to this particular object over here. Also, Jared is also pointing to this particular object. So we got aliasing, right? So that's why this assertion here actually will pass. All right. Similarly, if you try the other one, assert true, mark.getTrainer not equal to null, and also mark.getTrainer is equal to John. Well, hopefully you can see that, right? Let me just see diagrammatically how we can visualize that, right? You can see mark. Let me change the color here. So mark.trainer is pointing to this particular objects, right? And is this object does this object have the same address as John? Indeed, because it's pointing to the same objects, right? So you can see this part over here for sure is going to be true, so you will pass as well. All right, and then finally, what about Tom.getTrainer? Tom.getTrainer, you can see apparently Tom.getTrainer will still be null because we haven't set Tom's trainer just yet, right? We haven't done that yet. All right, guys, hopefully you can see that so far. So I will pause a little bit. I want to go back to the debugger quickly. So there's something I will do quickly, but you can try to do the complete exercise yourself. You can spend more time. Okay. So what I would like to do is, before I do, remember in the Eclipse over here, we're not only at this point over here, but in the paper we are definitely ahead. But I just want to show you one thing here. Can I simply just, if you're also drawing diagrams along the tutorial videos, I would like you to copy some addresses together with me. Okay, so let's now try to do this. First of all, what's the address for Alan? So the address for Alan, you know what? Actually, we don't need a member's address. We don't need it. Let's just get a trainer address. I think that'll be enough. Okay. So here, all the assertion pass, right? So step over, and then let's step over again. Step over, step over. So now we got Jared and we got John, right? So these are the two trainer objects. You got Jared here, and also you got John over here. Okay. I would like to copy these two addresses to the objects, right? Let me just do the first one. First of all, we got the address for Jared. It's going to be 3B07A 0D6. So copy that, and then you can see I just copied that over here, right? And then can we also copy the address for John? For John is going to be, let me put it down on my iPad. It's going to be 11A and 9E 7C8. So these are the two distinct objects we have, right? You can see now I got these two addresses over here. And then now what I would like to do is after let's try this. You can see for now for register trainer, right? Before I do that, I would like you to focus on so you can see the context object now is for Alan, right? So now if I expand the Alan object over here, take a look. You can see the trainer at the moment is simply null. However, as soon as I say step over, we would set the trainer for Alan to be something that's not null. And more specifically, it should be the object with the address over here. Let's double check. All right. So I will simply say step over, and I would like you to watch out the change for the trainer over here. Okay. If I say step over, you can see the only thing that's changed is the trainer over here. More precisely, if I click on this trainer over here, you can see the address over here. 3B078. Guess what? 3B078, that's exactly the arrow that we have set over here. That's exactly this arrow. Guys, it's really important for you to see the connection here, right? You can see the limitation for the Eclipse debugger. The Eclipse debugger wouldn't show you like a visual arrow like this. That's why you should really also know how to connect the visual diagram to the debugger in the Eclipse, right? Both are important. All right, let me say one more thing. And then if I try to now register John as the trainer for Mark, and let me collapse Alan objects and expand Mark objects. You can see for now, trainer is simply null. We haven't set it registered that yet. And I want you to watch out for the change for this trainer. And if I simply say step over here, you can see the trainer field over here has been changed. It's been highlighted. And now this address over here should correspond to the John trainer objects, right? You can see 11A9E. And guess what? 11A9E. Exactly over here. So that really corresponds to this particular arrow that we have just set visually. All right. So that's something I would like to say in order to catch up with the diagram. Okay. And let me just go a little bit further over here, all the way to here, right? Right before we execute line 82. So let's go back to the paper and iPad and then try to finish tracing these two, and then we'll come back to the debugger, right? All right. Let's now try to do another line. So let's say now we want to change the Tom objects. Tom.refer trainer, let me make it a little bit thicker. Tom.refer trainer Mark. So we are calling a different method, right? Let's try that. So we are really doing this line over here. So we are calling refer trainer. So that's a method. So refer trainer is the method we are calling right now. And then the context object is really Tom. So that means this will just be Tom. And then what's the input arguments? It will be Mark. So the M over here will just be Mark. All right. So that means this M over here will also be Mark. So what we end up having will be this. Let me write it down over here. So what we end up, I'll put it here. Okay, I'll put it here. So it will be Tom.trainer is assigned to Mark.getTrainer. .get trainer. Okay, so now how do we trace this particular line, right? So again, you really want to see we replaced this by just the context object over here, and also we replace the M, which is the input parameter, by the actual arguments, which is Mark. Okay, that's really important for you to see. So how do we execute this line over here? We know pretty well Mark.getTrainer, we know how to trace it. Mark.trainer, you can see Mark.getTrainer is going to give you this particular objects, and we're going to store the address of this particular objects into Tom.trainer, right? Store that into here. And Tom.trainer is really referring to this particular file. So what that will do is it's going to let this file point to just the same objects. So that's what's going to happen, right? So it's really important for you to see that. All right. Okay, let's now do it. So what we will do is we're going to say Tom.trainer, which is this particular field over here, and then rather than simply pointing to null, it's now going to point to Mark.getTrainer. And mark.getTrainer is really referring to this particular object, right? And then, so that means this is now going to point to this object over here. That's what's going to happen. All right. So after this, let's try to check the assertion. Assert true over here. And when we try to see tom.getTrainer and tom.getTrainer, tom.getTrainer is going to point to some actual objects in the memory. So for sure, not equal to null will be true. And then is that particular trainer pointing equal to the address of John? For sure, because John is really pointing to the same object. So that one will also be true. All right. So you can easily see that this is going to pass. All right. Finally, let's do another one. And to really, I really want to use another color. Let's use red over here. And what's going to happen is we're going to have tom.refer trainer and then Alan. Okay. So you can see the context object will still be Tom. And also, context object will be Tom. And also the input argument will be Alan. Okay. So we're calling refer trainer for the second time. And the context object will still be Tom. But now the input argument M will be Alan rather than Mark. Right. So I'll put Alan over here. So Alan. So what we end up having will be Tom.trainer is assigned to Alan Alan dot get trainer. Exactly, right? Okay, let me write it down. So this will be the second time I will put star star. Okay, so let me put a star star over here. So that means Tom dot trainer is actually assigned to, and then it will be Alan. Alan dot get trainer. Diagrammatically, how do we see that? Okay, let me show to you. Alan.getTrainer, how do we see that? Alan.getTrainer will really refer to this particular object over here. And then we're going to copy the address of this particular object into tom.trainer. And tom.trainer is really referring to this field over here. So that means rather than pointing to here, it's now going to point to this particular object, right? So that's a reasoning process. Let's now do it. So that means now tom.trainer, rather than pointing to this this object over here, is now going to point to this particular object over here instead, right? After being referred again. Okay, so now if we try to check the assertion here, tom.getTrainer is not equal to null for sure, but let's see if that's really Jared according to the diagram. So tom.getTrainer is really referring to this particular object. Is that really Jared? Indeed, it is, because Jared is really pointing to it. So now how can we verify this by the debugger? Let me just show to you one of them, okay, very quickly. So now we are ready. Let's just go to the last line. Let's just make sure. You can do also the intermediate lines as well. Let's go back to Eclipse over here. Okay. I'm going to let tom.refer trainer. So you can see after executing line number 82. So that means the trainer of over here. Let me just do something to show you as well for the expressions. You can see after this trainer has been set to some address over here, right? Actually, I should say Tom. Okay. If you look at Tom, and you can see the trainer over here. So this is the address 11A9E7C8. So that's actually this object over here. Remember, that was the first one that we did, right? That's actually correct. And then let me use some expression over here. So now I can, let me remove all the previous expressions. And now if I say tom.getTrainer equals, let's say John, this will be true. All right. And then you can see tom.getTrainer equals Jared. It's actually false, right? So now we are still at the intermediate point. So now we are right after this particular assignments, this particular mutator call, right after this, right? Now let's execute this as well. Okay, and then I'm gonna say step over. Okay, and now I'm going to change the trainer again. Let's go back to variables and then expand Tom objects. So trainer currently is referring to John. However, if I say, watch out for the trainer change, okay? If I say step over, you can see the trainer has been changed again. If you look at the address, it's 3B07. And 3B07 is exactly the Jira objects. So that corresponds to this particular change over here. Agree? Okay. So if you go back to the expressions over here, you can see after that change, Tom.getTrainer equals Jira will just be true for sure, right? And instead, it will not be John anymore since he's being referred the second time. All right. So guys, it's quite a thorough tracing over here. You can see it's quite a bit of work to really work out the details. Quite many details for you to pay attention to. But I think it's really worth doing together with you. So I would suggest before you look at the next part of the video where we're going to talk about multi-valued reference type attributes. But before that, it will be very crucial for you to really understand how the tracing for single value reference type attribute has been done, right? Specifically, pay attention to how the trainer attribute has been declared using another class that we declare elsewhere, and also how we get the accessor, and also how we get a mutator for this particular reference type single value attributes, and then review how we do the tracing, right? I really did it from the beginning to the end together with you. All right, review this before you go on to the next video.